Hi there, Phil Simborg for the USBGF. Here is a very common position and problem. This is a tactical problem. Game plan is not the issue. As you know, there's basically 3 game plans, and that's the first thing I look at before making any checker play. Am I going to be racing, priming, or hitting? It's pretty clear that I only have one game plan here, and that's to try and get a shot and hit it and win that way. So as red, your game plan is to play a holding game, but you have a choice. You can play the ace point holding game by staying here. You can move up to the 23 and play the 2-point holding game. You can move up to the 22 and play a 3-point holding game. One thing you're not going to do is split the back checkers right now. You're happy to have an anchor. Splitting the back checkers actually might give you more wins and give you a chance to roll a 6-5 and make his bar point and get out of there, which would also reduce gammons quite a bit, but it's just too dangerous. So you're going to commit to one of those 3 games. Which one should you play? What would you do? Well, I think if you taught Albert Einstein to play and you plopped him down in front of the board, he wouldn't know. The only way I know the right play is from reference positions. I know that if I stay back on the ace point, I am much more likely before the game is over to get a shot. He can't go behind me, and at some point I'm highly favored to get a shot. It's in the 90s somewhere, it depends on the bare end that white has, but you're going to get a shot if you stay back on the ace point. The problem is often the shot's too late. Often it's when your opponent has so many checkers off that even if you hit the shot, you don't necessarily win the game because he's got enough checkers off. And also, you often don't have the timing to hold your board so that when you get the shot, you have a good enough board on your side. In this game, though, you've got reasonable timing to maybe hold your board, but not great. I know that if you go to the 2-point, you don't get gammoned anywhere near as much, and as long as your opponent has checkers in the outside board, that you win the game quite a bit, because if you get the shot, you'll get it earlier than you would on the ace point. If you don't get the shot, of course, the odds are you won't get the shot quite as often, but you'll get it earlier, which means you probably win more often when you get the shot from the 2-point, and you cut gammons down by about a half. And I know that from the 3-point, you're far less likely to get gammoned, all things being equal, but it's much easier for your opponent to go behind you, so you don't win as many games. Well, this is what I call a normal match score, 11 away, 11 away. Meaning that the values are pretty much the same as a money game or unlimited game. So gammons are worth about half as much as wins. So when you balance everything out, you're best going to the 2-point in these positions. So the right play is 24-22. I've already rolled this out, so let me show you the rolled out version with the answer. And as you can see from the rollout, it's about 3.7% better than going to the 3-point, and the worst play would be to stay back on the ace point. You win a few more games, and you actually win a little bit more in the gammon department. As far as losing gammons, you lose more gammons by going to the 2-point than you do by going to the 3-point, which is the second best play. But the win, because gammons are only worth half as much as wins, the difference of wins of 2% would be the same as a difference of 4% in gammons. And here the difference in gammons is only about 3.5%. You really have to look at the details and the numbers to see the difference. But again, how did I know to make the right play here? I know it from reference positions. Let me just show you typical reference positions that are important, and this shows the importance of reference positions to be able to make the right plays. And by the way, for those of you who think these numbers and percentages are so small, why mess with it? Number one, they can be very, very large in different situations, depending on where the checkers are and the score of the match and so on. And number two, if you make small improvements in your play on every play, or on many plays, these small differences add up. If you can improve your game by your entire match-winning chances or game-winning chances by 3.7% in one move, and you do that with 10 moves, you've gained 37% equity. So it's important to understand the principle and look at each move to make the best possible move. That's how, in total, you can gain a huge advantage over your opponent, who might not be making these correct moves a lot. So it's not about making one right move to win the game, it's about making all of your moves better to give you a much, much higher winning percentage. It is a game of skill and is a game of numbers. So let me just show you real quickly my basic reference positions that I use. If we start out with your opponent having a bear in, and you're holding an ace point game, something like this, and let's say you have reasonable timing to where you don't get gammoned tremendously, and you have a chance of maybe having a good game if you do leave a shot. Let's put the cube in the center. Let's put white on roll. Let's make it double action. Usually we're talking about something close to about 15% of the time you get gammoned here, and maybe about 15% of the time that you win. Pretty close, 15.8, 14.3. So I use 15-15 as a general rule of thumb for the ace point game. When you move up to the 2-point game, let's put your opponent on the outside here. In a 2-point game, you're probably talking about close to half as many gammons. They go down from about 15% to about 7.5%. And your wins, instead of 15%, may be 14%, something like that. So you really do save gammons here. Let's see what our numbers are. And again, these are rough. Gammons went down to about half. Wins, like I said, about 14%. You will save a lot more gammons if you go up to the 3-point. If you go up to the 3-point, your gammons go from maybe 7%. Let's see, what's my reference here? To maybe about 5%. I think you probably get gammoned here about 5%, and the wins will stay with these 2 points out here. I don't know, 12%, about 12% wins. After this point is clear to be even less than that, but you do save tremendously on gammon. So this is important to know, because if you're at a score where the gammon value is 1.0, then you clearly would move up to the 3-point in a play like the one we saw. Yeah, 5% gammons, 13% wins. I was off by 0.84. So I'm close enough, and again, it depends on where these checkers are and the timing. So let's go back to our original play, and let me find the position. And let's make the score gammon save, and by that you hit the S button. That makes it a gammon save score, where you are red and you're winning 1 away, 2 away Crawford, and you don't want to get gammon because gammon values are 1.0. Let's just do a XGR plus, which is 3,600 times, and as I said, the right play now is to go to the 3-point, because gammons are worth as much as wins are worth. You save gammons by about 3.4%, and you don't win as much by about 2.5%. So they're equal, gammons and wins, and so it's clear that you would go to the 3-point. So knowing not just what is right, but why it's right, and studying these numbers is what helps you find these plays. Well, how can you remember all of the different plays and all of the different numbers? I can't. I'm not that smart, but my mind is able, because they're reference positions, to absorb the ideas, the basic concepts. Most of the time I can't give you as good an estimate of the numbers that I just gave you. The only reason that I'm able to tell you what the gammons and wins are from here, here, and here is because I teach backgammon 4, 5, 6 hours a day sometimes, and I'm teaching these in holding games over and over by repetition. Without that kind of repetition, I would never remember the numbers, but I do know the concepts, and my students do too. You learn the concepts and the story behind it, and that's the way I learn. Now, some people can memorize numbers. I learn by stories. I just make up a story about and remember the idea that the further back you are, the more you get gammoned, and the more likely you are to win a shot, and just gradually change that going forward. By the way, the high holding games get gammoned even less. If you have a 5-point holding game, that number is likely, with reasonable timing, to go down to 2 or 3% or 4% gammons. So, depending on where all the checkers are. So these reference positions in this kind of deliberate study, that is what is going to help you in situations like this. I don't know any other way to approach this. I don't know how anybody else could figure out whether it's better to have the 1, 2, or 3 point unless you studied and remember which point is better and for what reason. Hope this helps you. I hope it doesn't scare you. It just tells you that the bad news is you have to study to play this game well. The good news is if you do study, you'll have an edge on your opponents. That's how you will win more and play better. It isn't going to be by practicing your dice rolling or using karma to try and get better dice. It's by studying reference positions and studying different kinds of positions to see what's right and then figure out why, and then find a memory peg, find a way to access this information in your mind so that when it comes up over the board a month later or a week later or whatever, you'll remember it and do it right. Thanks for watching. Hope this was illuminating for you. These are very, very key reference positions. I recommend you do take the time to learn those numbers and learn the differences between the 1, 2, and 3 point holding games. Bye-bye.